in 3D. So why not? Let's do it. This is a pretty high res image. It is, God, 4K, more than 4K, so it's huge. It's better to start with a relatively high image, relatively high res image for this technique. And it's a pretty basic technique for ZBrush. We're gonna use the extraction technique that we've been using to make clothing. So we can extract this, but we can extract it from like a thick plane or something. But when we extract something, we really want it to be black and white because it needs to be a mask. So the first step is going to be to take the glasses and make a black and white image out of it. So erase out this shadow first. Start by just making a black and white image and try to get as accurate a mask as possible, right? So this is all with the idea that we're going to create a mask. So when we create a mask is basically just a black and white image. So as long as I have a black and white image to start with, then you know, it's all that matters, right? So the arm I'm taking out as well, because that's not going to be in the extraction. In fact, I'm probably going to need to get a different picture for the arm completely. So pay attention to your clean edges. We do have these two dots in here, which we also want to get out. And I'm just trying to make the cleanest black and white image possible. Control-Shift-U desaturates. Now it's black and white, but I'm not done yet. I have some specularity here at the top, and I have these dots again. So Control-J duplicates the layer. Control-L for levels. And by crushing my levels, I mean really crushing the levels, we should be able to get this detail out. Watch what happens, right? So I push this way, and then I immediately have a black and white silhouette. You can kind of see some problems with this, though, because you can kind of see where I still need to erase out some stuff. So even when I crush the levels, the dots actually go away, you know? See? And all the specularity goes away too. But it does become apparent where the problem areas are. Like I didn't do a great job down there in the bottom, for example. But let's at least erase this out a little bit. Oh, I almost forgot. In your brush settings, which should be F5. Oh, F5. There we go. Whoop, there it is. So in your brush settings, change your spacing. I don't know why the default spacing is at 25%. It kind of is annoying. Pull that down to the lowest it'll go, which is 1%. That way, when you're erasing stuff out, you don't leave the weird chunkiness. So you can see the chunkiness I'm referring to down here at the bottom. So I don't know why the default is 25%. To me, that's crazy. I just lower it as much as possible. And then now I can make nice clean edges. You might want to zoom in a little bit just to really make sure that you're getting this. Is everybody here, like in the class? Say something in Twitch, and that would be great, just so I know you're here, as usual. And of course, if you have questions, comments, or just, you know, want to talk with a bot, which I don't know, seems to be a bot that hangs out sometimes. It's kind of annoying. I don't know. Say something. Yeah, just so I know. Wow, this is not giving me a very smooth. It seems like the more I try to make this smoother, the worse it gets. But let's get close anyway. Point is, let's get close. Close as we can. We can also smooth out the geometry later. Oh, God. This is why we use a stylus. Don't do it this way. Use a stylus. Jeez. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Alt-click to sample this color. Go backwards a little bit. All right. I think that we can also smooth this out in the 3D, like I keep saying. So I'm going to not spend that much more time on this because we got to continue with this demo, even though we can do a better job with that part. You know? Okay, so let's get this out. This is going to become an alpha. Oh, almost forgot about this down here. Let's get rid of that. This is just going to be a black and white image that I make a mask out of. Good enough. And yeah, I know the nose piece is in here, and yeah, we're going to symmetry it, so it should work pretty well. Let's try a Photoshop file, either BMP or Photoshop, and this is just going to be glasses alpha. It's technically going to be a mask, but that's okay. Again, if this doesn't work, we can use a BMP, but let's find out. Let's see what happens. So let me make something new here really quick. Come on, wake up. Wake up. Okay. So we want to make this as an extraction out of something flat. We can just use plain 3D. And this is a flat plane. This should work just fine. We do have a thick plane as well. I don't think it makes a difference in this case. I always like the basic material. I'm sorry about the weird lighting. I definitely have some weird lights on. My apologies. I think I have a rim light on, so let me turn that off. There we go. Okay, so how do we extract the glasses? We hold down the control button. Of course, this is what we can use for masking, right? Masking like that. But we're going to load the glasses in as a mask. And of course, poly count is always an issue. Make sure that you click Make Poly Mesh 3D, or if you haven't done that yet, then it's perfectly okay to go down here to Initialize and turn up the subdivisions here as well. So you see you do have subdivisions here. So I could like say, oh, I don't know, 50 subdivisions in height, and so on. So this is fine. But ultimately, we want to click Make Poly Mesh 3D. And then if you know anything about this process and you've done it before, then you know usually extractions, for the most part, you probably want at a higher poly count. You can extract at lower poly counts, like I'm at only 2,500 points right now, but it probably won't look very good. To prove a point, let's try going to mask rectangle, and let's try using some random alpha image. I don't know, random. And then see, I can make the mask anywhere. That part's fine. But look, see how crunchy the mask is? That's what it's going to look like when it gets extracted. So obviously doing this at a low poly count isn't going to work very well. So let's not do that. Control drag to clear the mask out. We'll turn up the poly count by dividing, and we'll do this by hitting Control D. So Control D now has 4 times the poly count, 9,801 vertices. So Control D, now it's 4 times that, 40,000. Control D, 154,000, and so on. Now you might notice that the wireframe doesn't update unless you turn it off and back on. And that's just a weird thing about ZBrush. See, I hit Shift D, goes back down to 2,500, hit D, 9,800, and so on. So if the wireframe doesn't update, that's just not a big deal. Turn off the wireframe, turn it back on. It should update at that point. Anyway, hit Control D until we're well past 1 million. So now we're at 2.4 million. And you might be asking, well, how many million? And that's a valid question. It's basically about what gives you the best results. So we're only going to extract this. This is not really what the final output's going to be. It's just a question of how nice the extraction looks. So now again, if I hold down Control and drag, now look, now I get something much nicer, right? And now it'll extract, hopefully, with a pretty nice result. But we don't want that weird alpha. We want our own, right? So I hold down Control, I go to Alpha, and I click Import. And then in this way, I can import in the glasses that I made, right? So let's do that now. And by the way, I have the Control button still held down for the record. There we go. And there it is. Now, the weird part here, you can already see, is that it's inverted. So right off the bat, it's freaking inverted, man. So that's not going to work very well. So what we need to do instead is go into your alpha palette, actually, your alpha menu. And in your alpha menu, you can invert it here. We just have an invert button. Pretty easy. No problem. And now, notice that I inverted the wrong one. So again, this is a question of holding down the control button. Make sure you have the control button held down, and while you have it held down, then invert it. So that guarantees that now I have the glasses frames correct. If you hold down Shift, sorry, do that again. So if you hold down Control plus Shift, no, that's isolate, sorry. I'm trying to constrain it in case you're wondering. Switch to drag rectangle. That's a little better. Notice that it's constrained, but we have a different problem. This is at least holding the shape correctly, but now we have the problem of the sides being faded, right? The corners being faded. It's actually not a big deal. We change our focal shift to -100. So hold down Control again, change your focal shift to -100, and then we have finally what we're after, the perfect glass frame. And fill up your plane here as much as you're kind of capable of filling it up. And release. So finally we have this mask. Now we would want to extract. And the thickness is kind of, the thickness is what looks good, right? So that's somewhat arbitrary, but you're going to have to decide for yourself what kind of thickness looks good. So under Subtool, scroll down to Extract. And if you click the Extract button at this point, you're going to see the thickness. You're going to see a preview, right? So then this is what it looks like at 0.02. Looks like that. And holy crap, do we have some problems, right? I think everybody can agree. There's some definite problems here. Like, oh, let me check the Twitch chat first of all. Make sure you guys are following along here, or saying hello, or I missed the bot. Hello, here. Oh no, still sharing the, oh crap. Sorry. Wish you guys had said something about that sooner. Damn, my apologies. Sorry about that. I hope, I don't know now if the demo is going to have like double audio. Hopefully it won't. I don't know. That's obnoxious. I can't trim these demos. I can't edit them. So I hope that the first part of this isn't that obnoxious. Probably will be. Whoops. Hopefully not. All right. Let's just keep going. Let's power through this. So if we click Extract at this point, right, we know that the thickness is probably going to be too low. And I'm also getting these really weird crunchy results, which I don't like, you know? So what do we do? Well, first of all, let's turn the smoothing up. That does help a little bit. So these edges should be smoother. So these like weird wavy edges down here, these crunchy edges, that's one thing we can do to fix this. We can also increase the thickness to something exceptionally larger. This is a very sensitive slider, so it's only 0.14, but look, 0.14 might produce something that's surprisingly tall, you know? I'll click the Extract button again to show you what I mean. See? So that looks to me like it's still too far off the surface. And I also see some extra stuff here that I don't want. Right? So hold down Control, turn your alpha off. I like to use lasso at this point. Control and Alt, and then just make sure that you don't have any extra masking. And how can you make sure? How do you know? If you switch your material to flat color, this might give you a better idea of what your masking is doing. Like, is there anything? It looks pretty good to me, actually. But let's do it again. Let's extract. I'm going to turn up the smoothing a lot, almost max it out. Extract. Okay. Still having a lot more crunchiness, more than I expected around the edges. I'm kind of surprised by that. We could turn up the poly count. That's one thing that always helps, even 2.4 million. I know you're probably thinking, that's a lot for glasses, even one lens, that's crazy. And yeah, but we're gonna Z-Remesh it, so I'm not that concerned about poly count. I just want to get a nice smooth result. So yeah, clear the mask first, and then hit Command D one more time, or Control D. Now we're up here, there's almost 10 million. I'll put this back down again. I was using mask rectangle before. Even try mask square. as long as you don't lose the overall, yeah, mask square is nice. As long as you don't lose the proportions. I don't want to stretch. The thing about mask rectangle is it will have a tendency to stretch. So mask square does not stretch. Note that I'm not getting any stretching at this point. So there. So there's my mask. Looks nice. Let's try extracting again. Now I'm up here at 10 million. Seems kind of crazy. But let's see what happens. Okay, wow, we're still getting some weird stuff in here. Let's try clearing the mask down there. I don't see any extra stuff, but just in case, Control and Alt. Go back to lasso. So Control and Alt will clear from the mask. Control Alt, and I mean this is just in case there's like some extra floating stuff. Hopefully that will disappear. It's not really that big of a deal. We can, of course, separate it later, but I'm more surprised, actually, that the smoothness is cranked all the way up and I'm still getting kind of a crunchy result, but better. So we only have this little bit we have to worry about. Still getting crunchier results than I would like. By the way, there is an interesting solution here in that if I control tap on the mask a couple times, by control tapping on the mask, that smooths out all my edges. So control tap, and yeah, you're probably saying that's blurring your edges. And it's true, it is blurring my edges. But if I use, like if I go down to a lower subdivision level, down here, control tap, we see an obvious blurring around all the edges. Now I'll go back up to the higher subdivision level and then hit Control Alt to sharpen. And then that sharpens up the edges. So blur and then sharpen, basically. Okay. Still feels like there's some kind of weirdness coming on down here. Like there's some additional stuff, but let's just click extract and see what happens. Oh, yes. See, that is so much nicer. All right, so now it's just thickness. That's all we need to worry about now. So then get a little bit of an angle on the glasses. And let's lower this. It's 0.14 right now. Let's just go to 0.1. Click extract. Hey, that's pretty good, I'd say. That's pretty close. So I don't think that's bad at all. So I would like it to be a little bit smooth. You can turn on triangular border. I don't think that's a big deal in this case because we are going to Z-Remesh it. So let's just do that right now. Because this is still pretty high poly. I'm fairly happy with this, all except for this down here. But I mean, not bad, right? So if we're happy with it, we can just click the accept button. I definitely have some interesting problems here. If you guys can see what I mean, there's like banding, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. If you're happy with the thickness, I think I'm pretty happy with the thickness. I can click accept. Okay, and now I have this part of the frame as an extraction. We do have masking on right now, you might note, and weirdly the edges aren't masked. You can smooth those if you want. Control H, by the way, hides your mask. But that's not what we really want to worry about right now. What we want to worry about, oh, it is a little thicker than I thought. We can scale. Also, to get the thickness. Okay. Now, kind of crunchy along the sides here. So there are a few options. What are we doing with poly count? See, only 626,000 points. So there's a few options here. One option is we can smooth this by holding down the shift button. And it's just kind of what you usually do, right? We just hold down shift and carefully smooth over it. This takes a while, and depending on your poly count, it could take a very long while. And as you can see, it's not like that effective. And again, it takes a while. So what do we do? So my idea, or my solution to this, is to go down here to deformation and use smooth or relax or even polish. And you're kind of like, well, which one? Smooth is going to smooth over everything. Now, at this kind of poly count, well, I mean, at this kind of poly count, it might smooth too much, but it doesn't tend to be that strong, meaning that if you can see here, I'm kind of cranking on the slider many, many times. And it's smoothing the whole thing, which is okay, because we don't want these razor sharp bevels. These are pretty sharp. So you could do this. This is one option. You could just kind of do this for a while, but it still takes a while, and it is smoothing the entirety of the object. It is nice, though, because these edges here are not getting, are not as sharp, right? So every time we do this, it smooths these edges a little bit. Again, you can brute force it by holding down the shift button, but boy, that's not really working that well. So what do we do? Like this, boy, oof, this down here is especially annoying. So what do we do? Well, we do have a polish and relax. Relax is the strongest, by the way. So this is the one that seems to do the absolute most damage, I guess you could say. Polish is nice, especially polish crisp edges or polish by features, because that's kind of what should get rid of this banding. Now, so let's try polish by features, for example, and you should start to see the banding go away, or polish crisp edges. And yeah, you should start to see this banding go away. But ultimately, this might be a big problem that you're fighting because of your poly count and how this was created. Relax, by the way, again, is the most destructive one. So, whoa. We got some weird stuff going on the edges here. Let me undo that. I think that was polish crisp edges, yeah. So there, you could sit here for a while and use like trim dynamic, for example, or even trim adaptive, and try and fix this like this way. But you see how, especially with trim dynamic, I am actually starting to get this banding out. But guys, wow, what a pain in the butt, really. Like, this is a lot, right? And I keep telling you guys, like, there are easier ways. And this is just really beating a dead horse. It just takes a while to get this kind of noise out. And there's got to be an easier way, right? So there is. And this is what it is. It's just simply, let's just Z-Remesh it. And if we Z-Remesh it at a lower poly count, it's going to keep the shape, but get rid of the fine details. So that's really the answer. Instead of you trying to sculpt this out or smooth this out or deform it out, which could take a while, it's just usually better to just Z-Remesh. So I'll duplicate this for insurance purposes, as I like to say, because you never know when you might want the high res back. In this case, probably not, but you never know. The thing about Z-Remesh is that Z-Remesh is going to completely change the topology, completely. So then, if that's the case, it's destroying this object and replacing it with another one. All right. Having said all that, it's probably the solution you're looking for in this case. Let's Z-Remesh, but you know what? Let's do something kind of crazy here and maybe try Z-Remeshing with Symmetry on. It might not exactly get the results you're after. You may have to just force the symmetry on your own, but let's see what happens. Is the symmetry going to be in Y? Yes. Man, this is where your center pivot, or where your, see, look at the symmetry. This is on the right axis, but look, the pivot point is kind of in the center. The pivot point should be out here. So I'll hit W. See, there's the pivot point. I'll hold down Alt and move the pivot point. It's still not really doing much for my symmetry here, but let's see. Yeah, okay. I have a feeling I'm going to have to just brute force this, but let's just see what happens. So let's try Z-Remesh with symmetry on. I think maybe I should just add the symmetry later, but hey, I'm down to see what happens when Z-Remesher remeshes something with symmetry. Again, I feel like this is one of those, we've just got to brute force this. And when I say brute force, I mean glue it together by hand, man. Yeah, see, in this case, Symmetry didn't do what I wanted it to do. So let's just not worry about that at all. Turn off Symmetry, that's the X button. Let's just worry about getting a nice smooth version of this. Note that I have 5 for 5,000 vertices. That's the default for Z-Remesher. So I want something that's nice and low poly. And I mean, if it gives me something that's so low poly that it smooths it a little bit, I'm okay with that. I just don't want it to be so low poly as to lose the shape or edge detail. Anyway, who has got questions? Anyone at all about this? While this does the Z-remeshing thing, is everybody cool with this? Shadowbox for glasses. Yeah, that would work too, absolutely, if your shadowbox was high enough resolution. So you could also use a shadowbox. Since I already have it, like as a mask, I can demonstrate that. But look, that's immediately much better. See, Z-Remesher did exactly what it was supposed to do. It looks great. So turn off the high-res version, and you're left with the Z-Remesh version. And yeah, we still have a little bit of banding in there, but now it's like so much easier to deal with because at this low poly count, come on, wake up. I got the autosave on. At this low poly count, see now it's much, much lower poly count. I'm down here at 12,000 vertices. So at this poly count, because it's so low res, then any kind of additional banding that might still be left, I could just smooth out by hand. Or, since we were talking about the smooth function, deformation is nice because why? Because, well, with deformation, we can do what? We can smooth the whole damn thing. Or relax, even. Again, relax does a lot more sort of damage, but let's see what happens. Hey, look at that. Looks nice. See now how nice and soft the bevel is? Hell yeah. Nice work. There's a little irregularity here. But again, you can smooth this by hand if you want. Or, I mean, use your move brush is another option, of course. So if we hold down Alt, it'll push or pull along the normal. Fixed. All right. I'd say that's pretty good. I mean, this one's a little lumpy down here. So same thing, Alt. Alt to push or pull. Hey, look, I think I've got what I'm after, except it's only one side. But this is pretty good. So to get the other side created, it's actually pretty easy. I thought I could kind of hack it by just turning on Symmetry with your Z-Remesher, but of course, if your pivot point or center point is not in the right place, then that doesn't work very well. So let's see if we can watch this. If we click the Home button, that actually does center the pivot point. So with the Home button and with the X button on now, we should have actually the pivot point in the right place. So let's try that hack one more time because I'm fond of doing things quickly. So I mean, hey, if I can Z-Remesh this again and with the right symmetry, then why not? No, obviously not correct. All right, well, I guess I'm not going to be, oh, wait a minute. Oh, it's because, it's actually correct. It's not X. Got X and Y, hold on. Turn Y off. No, Y was correct, actually. All right, this is going to be the last time. No, okay, I'm just going to have to do it. I was trying so hard to make Symmetry with Z-Remesher work, but whatever. It's not a big deal. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to duplicate the subtool. It'll be right on top of the other one. We can trash this guy in the bottom because really don't need it anymore. So to duplicate the subtool, one's right on top of the other. Then take one of them and under Deformation, click Symmetry, or I'm sorry, click Mirror, but pay attention to the axis because like, look, I'm on Mirror X right now and this, see, wrong one. So let's go ahead and use Mirror along Y. Now, that should do it. Looks like I've got my glasses and they look pretty good. But they're not merged and they're two separate subtools. So there is actually a function in ZBrush which does this for you automatically. It both mirrors the object and it merges it together. It's been a while since I've used it, so forgive me if I stumble a little bit, but it's it's called mirror and weld is the name of the function. I think it's under remesh. No. Give me 1 second. It's called mirror and weld. Mirror and weld. And I would have sworn that it's under subtool, but now I'm like looking at this like, wow, it's been so long since I've used this particular function that I've forgotten where it is. Damn it. Mirror and weld. It's under modify topology. So mirror and weld is supposed to do the work for us, where not only will it mirror the object, but then also weld it together in the middle. So let's try it. Just wrong axis again, not X, but Y. Click mirror and weld. Oh, ZBrush, you little... It's just going right on top of itself for some reason. All right, well, this is why we have multiple ways to do stuff, right? So I'm really fighting with this mirror and weld function, which is depressing because I really thought this was going to solve the problem. All right, let's just do it the other way because I don't have time to struggle. Just do it the way that works, right? So mirror, no, wrong axis, Y. Mirror, good, perfect. Turn on the other one, excellent. But we have this problem of it being two subtools and we have a seam in the middle. It's really not that big of a deal. It might seem like it, but it's not. So what we do is we merge down, but we merge with weld. Make sure you merge down with weld. Boom. I know it's not undoable. And now we just have this one seam in the middle to deal with. It's really, really easy to fix. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it really is. So duplicate it for insurance purposes. And then after you've duplicated it, don't just Z-Remesh it. Theoretically, Z-Remesh should fix it, actually. But if it doesn't, if for some reason Z-Remesher doesn't, then you can Dynamesh it and then Z-Remesh it. Dynamesh is meant to fix this problem. So Dynamesh is what will really fix that problem. So let's just Dynamesh it. It's okay. Not at this resolution. 128 is going to be too low. But let's go up to like 400 or 500. That should be plenty. Not 40, 400. There is a blur on here, so be aware of this. If you want to smooth this even more, you can blur it. Click Dynamesh. Look, that seam just went away. It's just gone. And if it's not gone, you can always just gently smooth it out. And now it's definitely gone. Okay, so now seam is gone in the center. You can smooth it from different sides if you want, just to be sure. But it looks pretty good. Okay, pretty happy with that. You can smooth a little bit more if you want. I don't know, it's up to you. And once you've got the seam out, turn Dynamesh off, Z-Remesh it one more time. 5 for 5,000. That should be it. I know you're probably thinking, well, what about the lenses? I'm like, yeah, I know, lenses, gotcha. I'm on it. So now we have a nice frame. Looks pretty good, right? Not bad at all. Glasses, frame. We still need the arms. We can go back to Photoshop and get the arms from maybe a different image. Oop, not that one. I'm going to have to go back to my browser, I think so. Shadowbox for glasses. Why don't we do it for the lenses? Is that okay? I mean, you do it for the lenses, right? Okay, so arms. I would have sworn one of these views had the side view. Did we? Was that in an earlier search, or is that just what you posted on your blog? Maybe that's what it is. I feel like that's what it was. Hold on. Yeah, this was before the image search, correct? Yeah. Wait a minute. Getting off track a little bit here, guys. Sorry, I need to get back to where the arms are. Here we go. That's what I wanted. Something like this, as long as I just have the general shape. Now, of course, you'd like to have this fairly high res in a perfect world, but as long as you have the general shape, you can make it higher res. So all we're really looking for is the general shape of the arms. And having said that, we could even crop all that out. What gives me the clearer view? Well, there are more pixels in the one closest. So there's that. And notice I'm just cropping everything I know I'm not going to use. Like that. For the rest, I'll erase out. This is the same procedure as before. I'm just going to erase out everything that I don't need. Just need the arms, and be kind of careful about the edges, because even though we can fix this in 3D, like you just saw me kind of fixing edges, if you get nice smooth edges here, then that's a little bit less work you have to worry about later. And I can't believe I actually was going to box model this in Maya. Or I was going to use Maya to make glasses, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, nah. An extraction is just going to be faster, as long as you have a decent shape to extract. So for the arms, sort of the same idea. We can use extraction. Yasmin mentioned using the shadow box, and the shadow box is another great way to do this. So the problem, in my opinion, with the shadow box is that the shadow box itself has to be very high res for this kind of thing to look good. Speaking of high res, let's change the resolution of this image. Increase to at least 1024. Okay, and again, get out these areas. Okay, cool. Control-Shift-U to desaturate. Again, Control-L for levels. Crush those levels until we get nothing but black. Now, here's where the problem areas come in a little bit, because you can already see the crunchiness here, and also this gray area at the top. So get rid of the gray area. Delete it. Okay. Then again, crush your levels. Crushing levels just makes it basically a pure black silhouette. Boy, that's really crunchy. So we're ultimately going to have to do some trickery with the masking, meaning we'll blur the mask and then sharpen the mask, and that should fix this problem. But this is our arm, right? So we'll call this glasses arm. Now I was going to use shadow box for the arms, but you know, I'm just going to go with the extraction that we just made. Similar thing. So our frames are done. They look pretty nice. I feel like that was relatively fast. I mean, once you get your workflow anyway, relatively fast. Not too bad. Hopefully you're not going to stumble with the mirroring stuff. Again, it's just easiest for me to duplicate the object. After duplicating the object, then go to deformation and then click mirror here. That just works better for me versus trying your mirror and weld. Your mirror and weld should technically still work too, but okay, plane, right? Same thing as before. So just a repeat. Make Polymesh 3D. Push this past 1 million. In fact, push it past 4 million, I would say. So Control D, Control D. Uh-oh. Okay, there we go. Draw it back down again. So anyway, this is only at 16.6 million, you know. Just keep pushing this up. I would say till maybe 4 million. I don't know. Let's see. 1 million and one more 4 million. Okay, cool. That's more than enough. Same process. You can use mask square, or you can use the drag. Where is it? the drag rectangle stroke. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. Like mask square is nice because it doesn't stretch anything. And I don't want this arm to be stretched. So when I import this in, I really don't want the arm to be stretched in a weird way. Don't forget to invert your alpha. That's kind of important. I still have to have the control button down when I do that. So I have the control button down. And now with square, oh boy, that's actually stretched terribly. Not at all what I wanted. Now I'm wondering if the lenses were right. Huh. We can try using drag rectangle. Okay, that at least gives me the right proportions, but oops, that gives me the right proportions. Yes. Oh, perfect. Good. So this gives me the right proportions. I'm using mask rectangle right now. I just don't want to stretch it, guys. That's the only thing I'm really concerned about here is just don't stretch it, you know? We used an extraction of 1 or 0.1 when we extracted it. So it is helpful to remember what the initial extraction was, you know? The thickness, I mean. So let's talk about crunchiness. You can definitely see how the mask is crunchy. And we're up here past 4 million. So it shouldn't be this crunchy, but it is because the original image was low res. So what do? Remember, Control Tap to blur the edges. And then after you blur the edges a few times, then Control Alt to smooth the edges. And you can see already it's getting a little bit better. If you go to a lower subdivision level, like maybe here, then that's going to do a lot more work. When you blur, go back to the higher subdivision level, Control Alt, sharpen. Still kind of rough edges, but we can, of course, also relax out the geometry. So there's that too. And there's like lots of different ways to fix this, but I'm going to go with this. I feel like I might have made it a little too thin. So let me go back a few steps. Yeah, it's a little too thin. All right. When I Z-Remesh it, you remembered when I Z-Remeshed the glasses, right? That actually cleans up a lot of this problem, a lot of this weird crunchiness. So rather than worrying about how crunchy the mask is, or again, you could hit Control and smooth, or sorry, Control, tap, blur, Control, Alt. But yeah, now notice how much thinner the arm is. I would rather just make the extraction and worry about the geometry at this point. So let's do that. Let's go to extract. We know that it's going to be 0.1, right? So then extract 0.1. I think we actually ended up scaling it in anyway. Let's see what happens. T-corner is fine. I do like usually a higher smooth value. Yes, cool. Let's look at it from the side. Okay, that's thick, and it's also happening on both sides, it looks like. So that's a problem. It could be just because symmetry is on. Is symmetry on? No, it's not. Let's turn off double. That's the problem, I think. Double was what was getting it on both sides. Yeah. So it's a little too thick. Let's go with 0.05. That feels better. Let's check from the side. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Click accept. And because we kind of know the workflow a little bit better now, let's sort of skip to the end, or rather skip to skip to just Z-remeshing at this point, because that's probably the fastest way to get all the wavy stuff out here. Oh yeah, actually, almost forgot. There is another way to make this work better. So everybody's paying attention, and at this point I'll ask people in the class, is there, other than Z-remeshing, which of course the lower the Z-remesh model, the more detail it will take out, and it will take out some of these wavy, irregular lines. Is there any other way anybody can think of to clean up these shapes and forms, clean up the edges on the arms? Can somebody tell me in the Twitch chat? Maybe. That would be great if you could participate. Anybody can tell me? Anybody have any idea on how to clean up the edges? Or am I just gonna have to do it? Come on, you guys. No suggestions. Nobody. Hunter, No, Wesley, no. Nobody has any suggestions? No, none at all. Killing me. You're killing me. All right, so one way to clean up edges is to use something called the clipping brush, or clip curve. Hold down Control-Shift, switch to the clip curve, right? And then with the clip curve, this is going to be a way that we can clip, see? And by using clipping, we create a perfectly straight edge. And the spacebar will let us move this up and down. So in this way, I can get a nice curve here, like this, and release. And that's going to perfectly clean that up, perfectly straight. And if you're thinking, well, maybe that's okay for the top there if it's relatively flat, but what about this where we have an obvious curvature in it? It's fine. You can still use the same tool. Control-Shift will activate it, spacebar will move it around. But what's really nice, actually, is that you can add any curvature you want. So if you don't want it to just be flat, that's fine too. You can tap the Alt button, and every time you tap the Alt button, it's going to bend it a little bit. See, that cleaned it up nicely. Let's do the same thing for the bottom, but again, remember that Alt button. So Control-Shift activates it. Note the direction of the gradient, because that's going to be what it clips against. So what do we do about that? Well, we can go the other direction, right? And then that's going to be the gradients over here. That's one way to fix it, right? But another way to do it is if you hold down the Alt button, it's going to invert. So watch. Right now, it's clipping against the gradient. But if I hold down Alt and release, see, then it inverts. So that's the idea. Watch how this works. Control-Shift tap, or just Control-Shift left click to activate the clipping brush. Then do your best to clean up the edges. Tap the Alt button, because again, every time you tap the Alt button, you can add a little curvature. Just by tapping the Alt button. Oops, I got kind of a wrinkle. That reminds me, if you double tap the Alt button, you'll get, watch this. If you double tap Alt, you'll get a hard linear edge. So just be aware of that. Anyway, one more time. Let's try to clean this up as much as we can. Spacebar, again, moves it. Alt will bend. Follow the shape as much as you can. And then finally hold down the Alt button before releasing the mouse. It's all cleaned up, finally. Nice, good to go. All right, so now we can finally Z-Remesh it. You're probably saying, well, if I Z-Remeshed it at a low poly, then that should kind of clean all that up anyway. And yeah, maybe, but you might still have wiggly stuff and then you'd be having to clean that up. So then under geometry, under Z-Remesher, same thing, right? If you want to see what happens, turn on your wireframe. Turn on your wireframe, click Z-Remesher. And now you can really see much lower poly count. By the way, you can keep going. So that's just the target poly count. Right now we have 14,000. But if I click Z-Remesher again, every time I do that, it should get closer and closer to 5 for 5,000, because you don't really need that many polygons. In fact, you should have very few polygons for these arms. So it's just fine to sort of keep clicking the Z-Remesher button. Each time you do it, it's going to get closer to 5,000. Now we're down here at 9,000, and it's starting to look pretty nice, you know. Whoops, did the number just go up? No, it's still going down. Okay. And you're probably thinking, well, I could just do this. Wait, it did just go back up. What? All right, well, then I guess that's as many polygons as it wants for that shape, I suppose. Okay, aren't these arms bent a little bit? I feel like they are. I really feel like these arms are bent slightly. We should look at like a top-down view of these glasses. And you can see they're bent inwards. If you want to use this as an image reference, that might not be a bad idea at this point. So let's, in Photoshop, save it out as a BMP file or save it out as a PSD file. Because this is huge, let's knock down the resolution from 4000 to 1024. Because I mean, really, We don't need 4,000 for this reference. All right. This is really just going to show me how much the arms need to bend is the idea here. That's kind of why I'm doing it this way, because I'm guessing otherwise. I don't want to guess. So glasses reference, right? Here we go. Cool. Now back in ZBrush, there are a couple different ways to make this reference, meaning that we could use the actual image plane plugin, which I'm always pretty happy with, so I might just jump to that. Or as I might have mentioned already, another option is to make a plane. Oops, make a plane and texture it. Now I'm wondering if these glasses are stretched out. Look a little bit. Maybe they're stretched, but hopefully not. Okay, now append the arm. There it is. Center. Turn symmetry off. Center the pivot. Oops. No wonder. There we go. Center the pivot. Now. Scale is a little bit of a pain here. I'm not going to lie. There's some things I prefer not to eyeball, but holding down Shift will snap this. So now it's snapped this way. Holding down Shift will snap this. Now it's snapped this way. And then we just move the arm into place, right? Still feel like the scale's off here. Scale up a little bit more. Of course, you should use photo reference always. All right. Now, for the perspective off, or actually with perspective on, that makes such a huge difference, right? And actually, with perspective on, it looks right. This actually matches my reference really well. So maybe I don't need to bend it. I'll teach you how if you're interested, but that looks correct to me. Like maybe the arm is just a perspective issue. Like it's just a matter of using a perspective camera. P for perspective, right? Makes a big difference. Let's say we do want to bend this a little bit. How do we do it? W to activate the gizmo, Alt to move the pivot point maybe up here. And this is going to allow me to bend the arm out, right? But I want to actually bend, quite literally bend the arm. So there are a few different ways to do this. First, I want to talk about bending it using masking. Well, masking is just generally important for this kind of thing. So I like to use mask lasso, and I'll kind of mask about half of it. And then at a lower subdivision, maybe, if I have lower subdivisions, I can step down. If not, then just control click until you have a nice, super blurry. And the more that you control click, the blurrier the mask will be. So try to make a really, really, really blurry mask. And then once you have that, you can kind of go to, well, you can kind of just bend, right? But this is, again, very dependent on your mask. So if you move by holding down Alt, if you move your pivot, then you can do this a little bit more gently, you know. So move your pivot point, and then you kind of got your arms bent a little bit. And again, if you want to mask some more, mask like here, whoops, like that. And then again, keep blurring the mask as much as possible. And then R for rotate. Move the pivot to wherever you think is appropriate, and then bend slightly. And then you're getting a nice bend. Now, there is a tool in ZBrush, by the way, that will do this kind of thing a little bit more automatically. There is a bend deformer, I guess you could say. That is something that exists. It's a weird thing to get to, but I'll try and do it for you. It's a relatively new tool. But here's how it works. Hit the W button to bring up the gizmo. Click on the gear button. I bet you guys didn't know this was even here, but you've never even seen this. Probably not. Click the gear button and go to bend. There are a few options here, but I think it's bend that is the one we want. Bend arc, sorry. So bend arc, right? And the reason I don't like this or use it very much is because I feel like it's a little bit hard to use these controls. But just for argument's sake, I don't know if you guys are paying attention, but this is how we can bend stuff like we have a bend deformer in Maya. It's the same idea. If we hover over these things, it actually tells us what it's doing. So if we click and drag on angle, there's your bend. There's your perfect bend right there. There's your freaking perfect bend. So same as before, if we mask and blur, just like before, then we can click and drag on angle, and it's only going to bend. Well, that's not exactly what I wanted, but you get the general idea. You can play with these settings until, oh, wrong way. There we go. And now the arm is bent. Although I think we kind of maybe didn't mask it well enough, but that's the idea. I don't know if you guys knew that there was a bend deformer in ZBrush, but there it is. So obviously don't want to be too aggressive with it. Otherwise the seam will become apparent. But yeah, I got a bent arm is the point. And it's bent pretty nicely at this point. Okay, bend deformers for the win in ZBrush. Probably didn't know that was even there. Yeah, so how do we get the other side? This is just a easy one, right? We just duplicate. And once we duplicate, we mirror. Under deformation. Mirror. I believe it's mirror X, but nope. We've been doing Y this whole time. You'd think I would have gotten that by now. Mirror Y. Uh-oh. What's the problem? Masking, maybe? Clear your mask. Try that again. So control drag clears your mask. Deformation, mirror, one more time. Yay, that's it. So we have your glasses. Oh God, I feel like the arms are super long though. Am I imagining that? Or how do you guys, I need like a head now to put these on. They look right from the side, but from the top they look weirdly long. Does anybody have any input for me? Should I just put these on a head? Maybe that solved the problem. What do you guys think? Are you watching this at all? Does anybody care at all? Missed you. It's bot. Oh God, the bot. Oh, look at that. The bot's back. Seriously though, guys, I guess the best thing to do at this point would just be to like simply put these on a head to make sure that your proportions are correct. Because even though from the side it looks about right, I'm beginning to wonder from the front and especially from the top, like, seems a little bit long. All right, but let's try to finish up this demo fairly quickly. What time is it? What do we got? How much time? Yeah, only like 10 minutes. So let's try to push this along a little bit. You might find somewhere in the light box, I feel like there's a pair of glasses. I'm not going to spend time looking for it right now. I do want to mention that for jewelry, because people were asking about jewelry, there are rings here in the jewelry section. So if your idea is to use ZBrush to make rings, there's actually nice base meshes here, which are pretty cool. And I would have sworn there was a pair of glasses somewhere in the light box somewhere, but it's been so long since I've seen them. I'm frankly not exactly sure where they are. So I'm not going to spend time looking for this pair of glasses that I thought I saw once upon a time. Instead, I'm just going to add some lenses and call it a day because we're really out of time at this point. Damn. Well, we did talk about using a shadow box, so maybe this is a good time to use the shadow box. So yeah, let's do that because we're out of time. So I'll switch to some kind of primitive like a star. Then I'll switch to the shadow box. The resolution is very important here. This is 128 resolution. We can turn up the resolution, right? So we can turn up the resolution under Where your shadow box lives is in geometry. So in geometry, we have shadow box here. Turn this off. Turn up the resolution to say 256, then turn it back on. Now, you're probably thinking, well, there's a box there now. Yes, there is. Control drag, that clears it. And now you're back to starting place. So what Jasmine was saying, what Yasmin was saying is masking something in here will create it. So if we go back like we had masked before, mask rectangle, use the arm or something, then if we make a mask, then it will just automatically be created, as you can see. So that's how this works. So you might be thinking, why didn't you just do it this way? I can, certainly. That actually looks pretty nice. But we have to, as you can see from this, we have to actually decide on the thickness. Again, that's not hard. Just make not a circle. How did I get a circle? That was weird. Try that again. Mask square? No. Mask rectangle. I'm out of time. I don't have time for this. It's still giving me a circle. No alpha. That's strange. Okay, fine. Square alpha. But we don't want a square. We want this rectangle. There we go. That's better. So anyway, as long as we have something thin, then that's going to determine, oops, not on the bottom. Well, no, it worked. So that's another way. See? If you prefer to make your arm that way, that's absolutely viable if you prefer to make your arm this way. When you turn the shadow box off, that creates the geometry. I would still Z-Remesh it, personally. But that's another way to do it. So in regards to the lens, all we really have to do is just find the shape of the lens. How can we do that? We can go to Photoshop. I got to speed this up. We can go to Photoshop and make yet another black and white image. So what we'll do here is we'll just hit W for quick select, and I'll quick select this whole lens here. Let's do this again. I'd like my layers to be on, thank you. All right, and the brush palette gone. So deselect, quick select this guy, like I keep saying. Quick select. Quick select grabs this shape. Control C for copy, Control N for new, and then Control V for paste. Lastly, let's turn off the background. Unlock it first. Then you can turn it off. Control Shift V for paste. And now we have that lens. Make sure that the lens is not being clipped, right? We want the whole lens. And then we want to invert this. And then if we need to crunch the levels, by the way, of course, we can just crunch the levels. Oh, make sure you crunch the levels the right way. Not right to left, but rather left to right. And now I have my lens. And of course, this is what I'm going to use for shadowbox, right? And you're like, but that's a flat lens. And I'm like, yeah, it's a flat lens. I'm aware of that. But we can still easily, using the move brush, push a little bit of a indentation, for example. But let's just make this happen fast. Try to, because we're out of time. Lens. Look, we're going to use the shadow box this time. Just do this a little bit differently. Clear the mask, right? And then pick a view that you want to draw the lens in. Probably not the bottom. Let's go with the back, maybe, or the right side. Either way, load in the alpha, hold down the control button, click import, import in the lens. Now that it's here, you may need to invert it. It looks like I do need, yeah, that's definitely an invert problem. So hold down control, alpha, invert. You can do it in Photoshop too if you wanted to. Oh, we don't want this stretching, so this is bad. Let's switch the mask, or switch the stroke to drag rectangle. See, and that gets rid of that problem. Oh no. One more time. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Okay, good. Now it's going to take up the entirety of it. See, the entirety of the box. So this is where we just want a very thin back here. Oh God, what is it with the circle? It really wants to do that to me every time. No? I want the rectangle. There we go. And then this is going to be the thickness of the lens. Cropped it by accident. Oh, let's try making it just the entirety of the height. Something like that. And what do we get? We get a lens, right? So, cool. Turn off shadowbox. There it is. Next, make polymesh 3D. Makes it a new object. Z-Remesh. You knew that was coming, of course. So Z-Remesh, we're almost done. I know we're about out of time, so I'm sorry if I run a little bit over today. But Z-Remesh, if somebody out there is right now saying, you know, I can download some glasses from free3d.com, or I can download some glasses from TurboSquid, or I can download some glasses from anywhere, I would say do it. I would say, by all means, do it. Don't feel like you have to do things this way. I mean, come on. Like, I'm just showing you one way to do things. Doesn't have to be your way. It's just one way. Anyway, when you Z-Remesh this, you can well, you can smooth it afterwards. So if you're getting jagged edges, which I feel like I am getting up here, so I'm getting kind of lumpy edges up there, then you could totally, again, go down here to deformation and use smooth. Don't go too nuts with this. You can use relax, but see it's up there, it's relaxing. Relax does, as I mentioned, a lot more damage. So, or a lot more work, I guess. But now it's nice and smooth up there. Right? Okay, so almost there, almost there. Let's scale the lens to be a little bit less thick. It's a little bit thick. And then, of course, if we wanted it to bulge outwards a little bit, we can. How do we do that? We've got inflate, for example. We've got your move brush. So if we were to go to your move brush, then, of course, if we hold down Alt, it's going to push or pull. See? So if I hold down Alt, it's going to pull. You know? Divide up. Hold down Alt, pull out slightly. So that'll give you a little bit of a, that's one way to do it, you know. Inflate is another way to do it too. So you could use inflate. That's another option. B-I-N for inflate. Make a really big brush and then inflate. Oop, yeah, that might be a little too big. I kind of like the inflate in this case, but be gentle with it. So maybe just a little bit of Z intensity, not a lot. A little bit more. Okay, that's probably good, just so it's not completely flat. You even have a, I don't know, like that. You even have the way to, you even have an inflate here, so you could use this. This is going to inflate all the way around. Our inflate balloon actually might come in handy. Nah, not really. I mean, it's inflating in a weird way, so let's not even do that. We could even use the bend deformer, as I was showing you earlier, and just bend this. So there's like lots of options. Right now, it's of course perfectly flat. Let's just get it in the glasses. Let's just do that, because I'm really out of time. Where is it? Subtool. There it is. We want, obviously, for it to fit in the frame, of course. I am really worried about this, how long it is from the top, but without a head to put it on, I won't know. And once I put it on a head, then it'll make a lot more sense. But let's append the lens, and then center the pivot, move, whoop, wait a minute, that's the lens. Sorry, center the pivot, move it down here, rotate, hold down shift when you're rotating, and then there we go, that snaps it to 90. Clearly it's going to be what? It's going to be this side, yeah. So same thing, hold down shift and snap to 90. And now I can see why the frame, oh yeah, see the frame is definitely stretched out. So I kind of am I thought that the frame looked a little narrow. I'm out of time, really. So my options are to try to stretch the frame out to fix the lens, or to just stretch the lens to fit the frame. Wow, I'm kind of upset at myself right now that this is so far off in terms of proportion. I mean, we could, of course. I'm out of time, but we could try and do this. Just if we could try to do a quick fix using scale. And I'm only paying attention to one side. You might notice I'm not paying attention to the left side at all. I'm just paying attention. This makes the proportions makes a lot more sense proportions wise. I was kind of wondering before, I was like, that seems like really narrow. See, that fits the lens pretty well. And I'm pretty happy with that. Of course, now the arms need to move over, but that's no big deal, right? Oh, crap. I'm out of time. I don't have time. Masking is on. Turn masking off. Get one arm in place. If you've got one arm in place, delete the other one. Duplicate this guy. And of course, after duplicating it, then mirror one more time. I think I'm about done. I've got to mirror the lens as well. Is this mirror X? No, it's mirror Y. Keep going over that. Usually it's mirror X, but not in this case. It's mirror Y. Cool. One last thing is to mirror the lens, and then we got it, right? So let's mirror the lens. This does look a lot better than it did before. Hey, maybe I'll sell these glasses online. Maybe Turbo Squid or Sketchfab or Warby Parker or Zenny Optical. Kidding, but not really, because actually Wayfair has an army of 3D modelers. In fact, Wayfair, all of the stuff on the Wayfair websites are all 3D models, from what I understand. So there was somebody who was even scouting for 3D modelers on the forum that I sometimes hang out on, and they were looking for 3D modelers specifically. God damn it, you'd think I would know it's Y, not X. There we go. Oops. Almost so close. Just put the lens into place. And I think we're done. We're finally finished. So you could, like I said, add a little bit of warping to the lenses if you wanted to. It's a pretty like subdued effect. So I don't know how much you'd want to warp the lenses, but you definitely could using the inflate or the move brush. Yeah, or even the bend deformer that we talked about, or that we demonstrated earlier, bending the arms inwards. See how the arms are bent inwards a little bit? They're bending in this way. So I know I call it the bend deformer because that's what it's called in Maya, but again, you get to it here by clicking on the gear and going to bend arc, and that's going to be the same thing. So that would allow me to bend these glasses in some way, or these lenses, you know, and your controls are up here again. So angle, radius, twist. I'm not going to do this now, but yeah, see there it bends it that way. That's the wrong axis, of course. It's probably going to be up here, like one of these guys. Twist, angle, radius. Still not quite what I wanted, but that's okay. I'm pretty happy with the results. You can play with the bend as much as you want, but I would say that I'm out of time. So normally what I would do here is just use the move brush or inflate instead of fighting with the bend, but I'll leave it up to you. I think that's 9 o'clock or close enough, so I'm going to stop the demonstration there. But you got glasses? Woo! All right, that's it.